Welcome everyone to NCA 2021 and to this workshop session entitled The Catholic School as Parish, a Post-Pandemic Solution. I'm Kyle Pietrantonio, the Executive Director of the Duke and Altum Schools Collaborative, DIA for short, which is a growing international network of K-12 Catholic school leaders, really committed to strengthening the faith formation programming and campus ministry and evangelization efforts in our schools. I'm also a partner in the executive search practice of Partners in Mission, which is a Catholic school and educational consulting group based in Massachusetts that began and still has a big focus on enrollment and advancement counsel for Catholic schools across the country. And about 5 years ago, they began a school solutions leadership search practice to help schools find mission fit leaders at the school level and for dioceses at the system level for superintendents. I'm excited to talk with you about the topic of this workshop. It's one that's near and dear to my heart because much of the thesis of the workshop helped to inform the creation of the DIA Schools group. And I'll share a little bit more about that later in the presentation. But to set the stage and to make a case, we really need to take a hard look in the mirror with the pandemic our own church has been facing for the past several years. And that's the growing disaffiliation of young Catholics and the number of folks leaving the faith, not receiving the sacraments of initiation as they progress through their faith journey. And the reasons behind it. And so a couple of years ago, St. Mary's Press, in conjunction with Kara out of Georgetown University, worked on this document called Going, Going, Gone. And if you haven't yet read it or picked up a copy, I highly encourage you to do so. It's one of those documents that I think anyone right now involved in the ministry of the church, be it in Catholic education or pastoral ministry, really needs to get your head and heart around our reality right now. So just to flesh this out a bit more, 40% right now of millennials are identifying as the nuns, N-O-N-E-S, which means religiously unaffiliated. They're not identifying with a particular faith tradition. Sacramental marriages in the Catholic Church are down 55% since 1990. It's a staggering decline. Of those marriages, the rate of divorce at the 5-year mark is 50%, which is the same as marriages in the secular world. We talked earlier just about the sacraments of initiation as proxies for affiliation in the Catholic Church. The baptisms, certainly a metric we use to track enrollment forecasts in our schools. They're down 41.5% in the last 21 years. That's an alarming data point. 1 in 5 children who are baptized do not receive their first Holy Communion. 2 in 5 young people who are baptized are not confirmed. And only 15% of youth confirmed are expected to be in the church at the age of 21. The median age at which young people right now are leaving the Catholic Church is 13 years of age. That's before freshman year of high school. So we have a very large opportunity ahead of us for those involved in reaching and trying to form the next generation of young Catholics in our church. To visualize some of this landscape data, these are actually charts that Kara, the Center for Applied Research and the Apostolate out of Georgetown University, produced last year, just to give you a visual sense of these rather sharp declines around infant baptisms here. The chart begins in 1970 and takes us to 2019, and look at that almost 45-degree trend line down, starting about the year 2000 in baptisms, infant baptisms. Adult baptisms follow a similar pattern, although some leveling off around 2010. So that's perhaps some encouragement, a little bit of an ebbing of the tide. We hope that some of these adult baptisms in the church are going to raise their own children in the faith, but we still need to continue to evangelize the adults in our community, and we'll talk more about that later. Catholics attending Mass every week from 1970 to 2019. There, again, overall, a decline over the last 50 years, a noted decrease, again, starting around the year 2000. And then this is the nuns, the former Catholics, the currently non-affiliated former Catholics in the US, 151% increase in this disaffiliated group since the year 2000. By some accounts, this group makes up the largest quote unquote religious group in the US at the moment, those that are the former Catholics and currently unaffiliated. So the critical question we have before us is, if the pre-COVID disaffiliation rates continue, which on average is about 0.5% per year, the affiliated US Catholic population will shrink from 22% to 6% in the next 30 years. The church in our country will look vastly different. Is the Catholic Church in the US doomed to become the next Europe or Canada in terms of how the Catholic Church is represented? So what does this have to do with those who are in the vineyard of Catholic education? Well, I posit that in order to significantly tack the sails on these trend lines, we have no choice but to reimagine our Catholic schools for the future of our church. It's time for our Catholic schools to, borrowing the Duc in Ultum idiom, to cast out into the deep and to perhaps shoulder some new responsibilities in the evangelization efforts to guide our church forward in a hopeful way. So just a brief thought exercise that I'd just like you to spend a few moments right now in the midst of this workshop, thinking about, we're about, by the time you're viewing this, 13 months into this pandemic, this global pandemic. And as we're coming out on the other side of this pandemic, and we hope to return to some semblance of normalcy, when you think of your ideal parish, what comes to mind? What offerings, attributes, feelings that you might get? What comes to mind for you when you think of the ideal parish? And why? we've done this thought exercise with a number of focus groups in our network of Catholic schools, and I'm going to tease out some of the key motifs that certainly are representative of the DIA schools in terms of their recipe as a Catholic school. Chief among these schools, and I posit that we need to begin more intentionally thinking of all of our Catholic schools in this way, is that they are all a community of faith. Yes, learning is front and center of the mission of our schools. In one sense, they would not be a school if teaching and learning didn't happen. But they must be undergirded by this sense that they are a faith community. And I think when you start thinking of yourself as a faith community, we certainly think of our parish, perhaps as our primary faith community. And so as we perhaps translate and transfer some attributes of our parish community into our school, what can happen? Well, we've seen this happen in a number of our DIA schools, and the results are very, very positive. So one of the things we see when there is a focus on the school as a community of faith is the leadership begins putting out opportunities for programs and activities that allow the school to become a vehicle for family formation. It's no secret that there are a number of undercatechized, miscatechized, simply uncatechized members in our school communities. They could be parents, they could be faculty. We're certainly working on forming our students every day. But I offer, how might you reimagine your school as becoming a vehicle for family formation? When you think about it, the schools are an amazing locus, not just for students who intersect with this community every day, 180 days a year, but think of just the parent segment of our community as a school. You know, as an elementary school, the parents are picking up and dropping off daily. They might be invited to come in for your community mass, maybe have lunch with their children on occasion, participate in other activities in support of the school. How might we capitalize on some of the programs and opportunities of engagement that our schools already offer for parents or alumni? I mean, pick your stakeholder group in order for them to be transformed in the faith and to grow in their faith. This image here of a number of statues of the Virgin Mary was selected because one of our schools in our network, and we've got a treasure trove of really neat ideas on how schools have become a vehicle for family formation. One school uses a pilgrim queen in every one of their grades. And they rotate the pilgrim queen among every family in the school at least once during the course of the school year, where a child will bring home the pilgrim queen. In that grade level, there's a ceremony at the weekly meeting in the school about which family comes to receive the pilgrim queen. There are family rosaries in the box with the statue of Mary. And we really ask the students to take the lead in bringing their family closer to Christ through the intercession of our Blessed Mother. And there's just some wonderful reversion and conversion stories in the faith when we have our children who are so usually on fire when they're learning about tenets of the faith and prayer, to share that with mom and dad. And so that one small example, but there's many others that we could discuss. Next, is the segment of our community of faith, a really mission critical group, are faculty members. And a big part of Catholic school recipe is the fellowship of a faculty. One might even say the friendship of a faculty. They're relational. They're bearing witness to the faith every day that they're with our students. But how are they growing together as a group of ministers really committed to this enterprise of forming young people in the faith? Not just reading, writing, arithmetic, but also religion. And you can be the algebra teacher and still have an opportunity to instruct by your witness the faith. But when you create fora and opportunities for your faculty to really grow together as a committed team, again, as a member of this faith community that they're proud of, there's some remarkable things that can happen in their own faith journey as they engage and intersect with your school in that way. A shout out to one of our DIA member schools, Ozark Catholic Academy in Northwest Arkansas. That's John Rocha, their founding head on the left in the bow tie. And John's just built a wonderful school out there with a real committed, group of faith-filled faculty. Another motif along this thesis of the Catholic school as community of faith is thinking about other what I would call co-curricular activities that make up the schedule in a given year for your school, and how might you overlay a faith dimension to an opportunity that already exists at your school. So here is a dining hall filled with a number of folks. And one of our schools had a neat tradition they started a few years ago where they do monthly fellowship dinners on Wednesday night. So their whole idea was, we'll provide dinner for families and faculty on Wednesday night to come and break bread together. I think they borrowed it from some of our Protestant brethren, where Wednesday evenings outside of Sunday are another tentpole event in their faith tradition for community gathering. And this school has had remarkable success with building community across all of those neat intersection points where faculty come together and they're at a table with parents, perhaps of different grade level students that they have, and they're just building this social capital together. And then have a faculty member deliver a brief gospel reflection, or if you're blessed to have a chaplain, perhaps in addition to grace, a few words perhaps around the season that you're in, be it Lent or Advent or what have you. Don't miss these wonderful opportunities that you have in the life of your school to infuse the faith and have it as an opportunity to inspire and evangelize, and to remind everyone of the awesome and unique difference that it is to be part of a Catholic school. The other great blessing we have in our Catholic school and in our church in particular is a very rich intellectual tradition. And I alluded a few slides back to some of our parents who are in our school that might not have the catechesis that we're giving to our kids, to our current students, and what a neat opportunity it is to leverage some of your talented faculty and administrators to provide maybe some programming that are invitations to your parents in your community to grow in their knowledge of the church and her magisterium. And so feel free to branch out in this way. We have great resources in the staff of our schools to leverage. And all of us who have been administrators know that a stipend can go a long way to helping our teachers supplement their salaries. And so this might be something you get a donor to help with, and you put together an adult enrichment or a parent enrichment program, someone to perhaps sponsor that. Some of the funds can go toward offering some stipends to your faculty to put together, some lecture series that are scattered throughout the year. And you can also offer these now virtually. That's become such a part of the norm these days that folks can plug in from the comfort of your home. They can be recorded so that parents can plug in at their leisure. So another opportunity to minister to our parents as a community of faith. Related to this, and this goes a little bit deeper, and some of our schools have been very effective at taking this plunge, is all right. They say we have parents that are at our doorstep every day. Their kids are here. They feel very comfortable in our environment. Perhaps they're not going to church yet, but they're at our doorstep. How might we reach them based on their needs? One of the things when I was a lower school director that was rather discouraging was, seeing the brokenness of families, particularly at a young age, parents struggling through challenges resulting in separation and even divorce. And I worked with our chaplain at the time to say, we've got to start ministering to our parents earlier. I mean, we're privileged to have an early childhood center or preschool. Let's begin putting together some things for marriages now. And to his credit, and he was very much on board and willing, and we began small with some fun topics just on married life that we would invite some guest speakers to. This has morphed into a whole program now where there are overnight retreats that the school sponsors for married couples, which has just been a wonderful service to parents in our school community. And we've seen some wonderful grace come out of this, including conversions to the faith, reversions to the faith, saved marriages, strengthened marriages. So I really encourage you, if you're involved in the life of a school as a leader, to think about ways that you might step into the breach and help our parents on the marriage front. The family is the domestic church, and it's under attack in our country. And outside of the homily at my nuptial mass, I have not heard one homily on the topic of marriage in the last 12 years I've been attending mass. And I don't think I'm alone in the dearth of support we need from our faith and our pastors on the topic of marriage. And so I think this could be a really unique opportunity, and potentially could draw others who are not yet in our Catholic schools into our communities if we're willing to take this on. We've seen it happen in some of our schools. So pragmatically, how might you tackle this at your own school, recognizing that every school is unique and different, has its own culture and charism. So some initial suggestions would be to form a mission and identity committee, and have this be a neat cross section of folks where you could have some of these groups represented. Perhaps there's a parent or two, a faculty member or two, if you have a campus minister or a chaplain involved, certainly your school leader, and see, based on your context at your school, what is achievable on reimagining our school in this deep way as a community of faith. and reaching all of the stakeholders that intersect with your school. And as the adage says, measure what matters, and create a rubric that will help keep track of things that work and don't work, of what's important, what's less important, and have some consensus and agreement from the committee on what you want to focus on out of the gate, and how you're going to what counts as success based on what you're going to try and go after. I mentioned, my role as executive director of the DIA schools. We are a resource that's readily available for you if this is something you want to take on. We've helped a number of schools really take the plunge and go out into the deep on this, and certainly our bread and butter. So I make myself available. My contact information is at the end of the presentation. So I'd welcome to hear from you about how DIA can help you in this initiative. And then think of other apostolic partnerships in your diocese or in the immediate area of your school. It could be a parish connection that you build. Perhaps you do a joint adult ed or parent ed program together. It could be a Catholic university or college partnership in which you tackle some of this idea and perhaps share this idea of a community of faith together with another group like that in your area. So there's a number of ways to think about this. My invitation is to begin thinking about it, because it's going to be critically important for us to curb the downward trends we're seeing with disaffiliation demographics in the church. So as I mentioned, I'm happy to be available to chat. Feel free to reach out to me via email, kyle@diaschools.org. I really look forward to hearing your insights on this topic and the presentation, and getting to meet you. Enjoy the rest of NCA, and really look forward to being back next year in person. God bless.